Warning: the SCP Foundation database is classified. Access by unauthorized personnel is strictly prohibited. Perpetrators will be tracked, located, and detained.
Item Number SCP-119. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-119 is to remain open and unplugged at all times, except during testing. The door to the room in which SCP-119 resides is to be locked for all periods, except during experimentation, with the entry codes given only to authorized research and security personnel. An industrial-grade disinfectant will be available nearby at all times, and the inside of SCP-119 is to be heavily disinfected before any testing. The contents of SCP-119 are to be monitored through the viewing window on SCP-119 at all times during testing, and will be stopped immediately should the contents become hostile or otherwise damaging to SCP-119. Description: SCP-119 is a Panasonic
Redacted
microwave oven. It was initially discovered by an agent who had bought it from a liquidation sale of the assets from
Redacted
Valley Vineyards. It is believed that
Redacted
Valley Vineyards was using the anomalous properties of SCP-119 to rapidly age its products and create expensive vintages. Records show
Redacted
Valley Vineyards making under-the-table sales of vintages dated as far back as
Redacted
many years before the company's inception in 2005. These sales are what led to the lawsuits accusing the company of falsifying product information and other forms of fraud, which eventually caused
Redacted
Valley Vineyards to declare bankruptcy. SCP-119 appears to be a standard model of microwave in all respects, except that the magnetron unit does not produce microwave radiation. Instead, the magnetron emits a previously unknown type of radiation that accelerates time. The amount of time accelerated is based on the time input given at the start and the power level setting. The time input allows for 3 digits, and there are 5 power level settings. On power level 1, the number of seconds input equals the number of seconds experienced within the microwave. Therefore, an input of 30 seconds would cause the microwave to run for 30 seconds, at the end of which the object will have aged 30 seconds. Each subsequent power level past 1 causes an exponential increase of the acceleration of time. At power level 2, with an input of 30 seconds, the microwave will run for 30 seconds, and the contents will have aged for 900 seconds, 15 minutes, or 30 seconds squared. At power level 5, with an input of 999 seconds, the microwave will run for 999 seconds, and the contents will have aged 995,990,4,999 seconds, or 31,529,964 years. Experimentation with the other buttons on the microwave have not resulted in any anomalous properties, although they do still function as would be expected from a normal microwave. The Minute Plus button, for example, adds 60 seconds, and the Defrost function prompts the user to open the door and flip the contents periodically. Pressing the Minute Plus button during operation, however, does not recalculate the adjusted time acceleration, merely causing the contents to age at the pre-calculated rate for another 60 seconds. For example, while running for 30 seconds at power level 2, aging the contents for 900 seconds, or 15 minutes, input of minute plus would result in the microwave running for 90 seconds and aging the contents 2,700 seconds, 3 times 30 squared, or 45 minutes, instead of aging the contents for 8,100 seconds, 90 squared, or 135 minutes. SCP-119 can be dismantled, and replacement parts can be substituted for every component except the magnetron. When placing the magnetron in any other microwave, including duplicates of the same model, the magnetron continues to exhibit time acceleration. However, replicating the effects of anything above power level 2 has failed in every model except the original microwave in which the magnetron was found. Although SCP-119, like all standard microwave models, will normally only function when the door is closed, during deconstruction, it was determined that disabling the closing mechanism allows the device to work while open. Subsequent testing determined that the radiation emitted from SCP-119 has a fallout pattern very similar to the microwave radiation it replaced. However, further experiments operating SCP-119 while open now require the approval of a Clearance Level 4 personnel. Addendum. After subsequent testing, it has been determined that the accelerated time experienced within SCP-119 is not accelerated from the perspective of those being affected, instead causing the occupants to perceive that they are simply staying inside of the microwave for the adjusted duration. Should living creatures be exposed to SCP-119 for extended durations, they could quite quickly die of starvation, as they will require as much sleep and food as they would outside of SCP-119. Therefore, further experimentation with living beings now requires the approval of a Clearance Level 4 personnel. Furthermore, due to the possibility of microorganisms undergoing accelerated evolution within SCP-119, industrial-grade disinfectant has now been added to the containment procedure for SCP-119. Test log for SCP-119. Contents: Cup of lukewarm coffee. Time input 60 seconds at power level 1. Results: Agent attempted to reheat his coffee. Microwave activated and ran for 1 minute. Coffee was still cool upon removal. Contents: Cup of lukewarm coffee. Time input 60 seconds at power level 4. Results: Agent increased power level, assuming the first setting was too weak. Microwave activated and ran for 1 minute. Upon opening the door, Agent discovered his coffee had grown a thick layer of mold and scum, consistent with the amount that would be expected from leaving a cup of coffee out for 5 months. At this point, the agent brought the microwave to the attention of the Foundation. Contents: Stopwatch. Time input 30 seconds at power levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Results: Series of tests conducted to determine the effects of various power levels on time fluctuation. Resulting times on stopwatch were 30 seconds, 15 minutes, 7 hours 30 minutes, and 99 hours 99 minutes 59 seconds. There was no result for the Power Level 5 test, as the battery had died. Subsequent test using a more powerful stopwatch with a larger display resulted in 9 days 9 hours and 281 days 6 hours for the last two settings. Contents: Rattus norvegicus, the common lab rat. Time input 60 seconds at power level 4. Results: Testing had expected the subject to age 5 months. Upon starting the timer, subject became a blur, barely visible in its rapid movement around the container. At 3 seconds, subject ceased all movement. At 5 seconds, subject began rotting rapidly. Testing was halted at 10 seconds, and SCP-119 was cleaned of excrement and remains of subject. Cause of death was determined to be dehydration. Contents: Rattus norvegicus, the common lab rat, in a small cage with lining and external automatic food and water dispenser filled with 5 months of food and water attached to tubes routed through air vent. Time input 60 seconds at power level 4. Results: Upon starting the timer, subject became a blur, rapidly moving throughout its cage. Both the food and water supplies drained from their containers rapidly. At 60 seconds, subject was found to be dirty due to its uncleaned cage, but otherwise fine. SCP-119 cleaned. Examination revealed subject to be in poor health due to its living conditions in the uncleaned cage, but with no abnormalities. Contents: 1 liter of water in a shallow glass bowl. Temperature in room containing SCP-119 lowered to 1 degree Celsius. Time input 600 seconds at power level 5. Results: Time inside SCP-119 intended to be approximately 24.7 years, with an initial input of 60 seconds. Test intended to determine the difference of atmosphere and heat transfer between the inside and outside of SCP-119, as demonstrated by the evaporation of water at near-freezing temperatures. The research assistant entering the time added an extra 0, which would bring the total time up to 2,465,753 years, or over 4,000 years per second. Upon pressing start, an immense amount of air began to cycle through the vent. The assistant immediately recognized his mistake and opened the door to stop the timer, at which point a wave of bluish spores emitted from SCP-119 and onto the assistant. The assistant began to choke and quickly asphyxiated. Subsequent testing on atmospheric conditions revealed low oxygen and high carbon dioxide levels, as well as elevated levels of sulfur. The spores were found to be an unknown xerophilic species of mold. Within SCP-119 was a dense ecosystem of molds and tardigrades, water bears, along with numerous other unknown species, some of which do not neatly fit within existing categories. The entire ecosystem created a balanced atmosphere and seems to have stemmed from the original contents of the water, air, and the assistant. Note: in light of this test, containment procedures have been updated to include industrial disinfectant. Contents: None. Door is removed from microwave for duration of this experiment. SCP-119 placed in the middle of a large Faraday cage room with freshly painted floor using paint that changes color as it dries. Time input 30 seconds at power level 3. Results: SCP-119 remotely activated and all testing observed remotely. Resultant paint pattern demonstrated the fall-off of radiation from the microwave, the paint closest to the front of the door demonstrating 8 hours of drying, and the furthest section of the floor behind the microwave demonstrating closer to 2 hours of drying. Contents: None. Door is removed from microwave for duration of this experiment. SCP-119 is placed in the middle of a large Faraday cage room with dried paint. Lightweight floating debris and dust is released into the room through a vent. Time input 30 seconds at power level 3. Results: SCP-119 is remotely activated and all testing observed remotely. A pattern of complex air currents reflecting the pattern left by the paint emerges as individual particles float between stronger and weaker radiation. The radiation did not actually apply any force to the particles, but rather affected their momentum in relation to each other, eventually evolving into a detectable air current pattern. Contents: SCP-442, a pocket watch that will always set itself to the correct time. Time input 90 seconds at power level 5. Results: SCP-442 continued to keep the correct time during the entire duration, showing 1 minute and 30 seconds of time passing over the course of the experiment. Contents: SCP-289, a mass of hematite that intensifies the effects of inertia on objects over time. Time input 90 seconds at power level 5. Results: None. Permission to carry out experiment denied. Note by 05.
Redacted.
Not funny. Do we really need to explain why that is a bad idea? You already know exactly what that would do.
Contents: Bottle of Macallan 12 Years Scotch. Time input 60 seconds at power level 5. Results: During previous tests, researchers had been joking that they should nuke themselves a drink, and one researcher retrieved a bottle of Macallan from his quarters. The 12-year vintage is relatively inexpensive to obtain, but the 25 and 30-year vintages are considered by some to be the best of all Scotch commercially available. Upon completion of test, bottle was effectively a 37-year vintage. Intention of test had been to consume during subsequent tests, but at this point, the intent had been heard by a superior, who allowed the researchers to keep the bottle as long as they waited until off-duty to consume it. Note by Dr. Grant and Dr. Derel.
Subsequent testing determined that the results of this experiment were delicious.
It would seem Dr. Grant is a rather poor whiskey connoisseur, as whiskey does not age outside of the barrel. Your delicious experiment resulted in a 37-year-old bottle of 12-year aged Scotch. Well done.
I stand by my initial assessment. Delicious.
End of file. The SCP Foundation database is produced and narrated by Joshua Alan Lindsay, and SCP-119, Timecrowave, was written by elrosth. The voice of 05
Redacted.
was Joshua Alan Lindsay. The voice of Dr. Grant was Breck Wilhite. And the voice of Dr. Derel was Kendra Izzy Murray. Support for the database is solely provided by our patrons on Patreon. Please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/the SCP Foundation database to gain access to exclusive benefits, including bonus content, joke SCPs, merch, the ability to request episodes, and an invite to our private Discord server. If you enjoy the database, consider leaving a rating or review, and stay connected by following any of our social media profiles. Links can be found in the episode description.